Hello, students. Welcome back to the e learning platform of Divine Public School. This is Shivain sir, and I'm going to explain you the chapter number 6 of your literature book, The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. So let's start. Before we study the chapter, let me tell you about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who is the author of this story. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a British writer. He is well known for his detective fiction. He wrote fiction stories. The author wrote many stories featuring the famous character Sherlock Holmes and his close friend Dr. Watson. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was born in May 1859 in Scotland. He was originally a physician. In 1887, he published A Study in Scarlet, the first of four novels about Holmes and Dr. Watson. He wrote over 50 short stories featuring Sherlock Holmes. These stories are considered as milestones in the field of crime fiction. His other works include many plays. Sherlock Holmes is a fictional detective, imaginary one, imagination of Arthur Conan Doyle, who lives at 220B Baker Street in London. His intelligence, power of observation, and analytical ability are commendable, praiseworthy. So let's find out more about this in this story. It was Christmas time. Dr. Watson visited his old friend Sherlock Holmes at 221B Baker Street in London. At that time, when Watson reached Holmes, he found that Holmes was wearing his dressing gown and engrossed in the examination of a battered hat with his magnifying glass. What was Sherlock Holmes doing? He was in his gown. He was engrossed. He was busy. He was engaged in examining a battered hat. Battered hat means crushed hat, badly damaged one, and he was observing it with his magnifying glass. Sherlock Holmes told Dr. Watson that Peterson, the security guard, had given him a hat and a goose. He was telling him from where did he get it. Peterson found these two things when he was coming home at about 4 o'clock on Christmas morning after attending a party. He saw a tall man carrying a goose over his shoulders. So how did Peterson get it? He got in fact two things. One was hat, the battered hat, and the second one was goose. So Peterson was on his way, and then he noticed that the tall man was there who was carrying a goose over his shoulders, and just it happened. Suddenly a group of rough young men attacked the tall man, and one of the young men knocked the tall man's hat off. The tall man raised his stick to defend himself. In order to defend himself, the tall man raised his stick and accidentally smashed the shop behind him. Peterson came forward to protect the tall man from his attackers, and Peterson, when saw this, he also went there to help that tall man. The tall man thought Peterson was a policeman. The tall man, he was confused whether the person was a policeman or someone else, but he was sure that this man, Peterson, was a policeman. So he dropped the goose and ran away. And on the other hand, the young men who had attacked on the tall man, they also ran away. And then Peterson picked up the hat and goose and brought them to Sherlock Holmes. Now Sherlock Holmes had kept the hat and he gave the goose to Peterson for his wife to cook. And there was a card which was attached to the bird, the goose, and on it the address, it was addressed to Mrs. Henry Baker, and in short form HB. The initials HB were imprinted on the hat, which suggested that the owner can be Mr. Henry Baker. And from the size and appearance of the hat, when Sherlock Holmes saw the hat, seeing the size and its appearance, he concluded that Henry Baker must have been an intelligent man. And yes, he was not very affluent person, not very rich person, but he must have been earlier. He must have been a rich man earlier, but at present his condition was not good, not economically good. Yes, and a man of self respect. These all he concluded just by seeing the hat, the size and appearance of the hat. At this point, when he was just explaining this these points to Dr. Watson, Peterson came back and informed them that while when his wife was going to cook the goose, and for that when she cut the goose, then she found a blue diamond in the stomach of the goose. The blue diamond was the blue carbuncle. What is blue carbuncle? A precious stone that was stolen from the room of Hotel Cosmopolitan. Sherlock Holmes had heard about this. He had heard this news that this was the same precious stone, same blue carbuncle which was stolen from the room of Hotel Cosmopolitan. And to whom this did it belong to? It belonged to Countess Morker. Now, the blue carbuncle was stolen on 22nd December, and John Horner, a plumber, he was accused of stealing this blue carbuncle. James Ryder, an employee at the hotel, had called up the police. Who informed the police? James Ryder, who was an employee at the hotel, and he told the police that he had shown Horner the room of Countess of Morker for some repair work. And he told the police that he himself showed Horner the room. He took Horner to the room of Countess of Morker just for some repairing work. And as he had some work in hand, because Ryder himself was busy in some other work, he left the room, and when he returned and when he got back there, what did he notice? That Horner had already disappeared and the diamond had been stolen. And after this, he guessed that this person must have been the one who had stolen the diamond. Hence, John Horner was arrested. These all in this story was told by James Ryder to police, and as a result, John Horner was held accountable for this, and he was arrested. Sherlock Holmes, when he got this blue diamond, this blue carbuncle, he placed an advertisement in the evening papers so that Henry Baker, to whom that had belonged, he might be able to come and collect his things from Baker Street. Henry Baker turned up and took his things. He was very happy after getting his things, and yes, of course, he was not aware of the blue carbuncle, that in the stomach of that goose there was a blue diamond. In fact, he was more worried about the goose. He did not have anything to do with the diamond. He was, yes, asking for that goose only. So Holmes gave him a fresh one. Henry Baker then told Sherlock Holmes that he had bought the goose at the Alpha Inn. Henry Baker also informed Sherlock Holmes from where he had bought that goose. And what was the name of the inn? It was Alpha Inn. Now Holmes and Watson set out to find about the blue carbuncle. And now he was on to find about what was the matter. How did this diamond come into the stomach of that goose? So they went to the local inn where Henry Baker had bought the goose. They found out that the goose had been bought from a salesman called Breckenridge in Covent Garden. And there he came to know that from where was the goose purchased? It was bought from a salesman, and his name was Breckenridge in Covent Garden. Now, Holmes and Watson went to Covent Garden Market to get some information from Breckenridge. Now, because from Breckenridge was the salesman, so it was necessary for Sherlock Holmes to meet Breckenridge. Breckenridge told them he had bought the goose from Mrs. Oakshott. And now who was Mrs. Oakshott? A poultry and egg purveyor. She was a businesswoman, a seller in Britain. After Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson had walked some distance away from Covent Garden Market, they heard angry voices from the stall they had left. From where they left, they heard some sound, some angry voices. Turning around, they saw Breckenridge arguing with a man. What did they find? They noticed that Breckenridge was making an argument with a man. Suddenly the man turned, ran off down the dark street. And Holmes and Watson followed the man and soon caught up with him. And they chased that person and caught him. The man told them that his name was James Ryder. This was James Ryder, children. Holmes then asked James Ryder to accompany him to Baker Street. Now Holmes told him that he must go with him. He must accompany him to Baker Street. Holmes then told him about the goose and the blue carbuncle that came out of it. James Ryder confessed his crime. But when James Ryder found that now there is no option left, he just accepted that he was the real convict, he was the real criminal, and he told the whole story. Ryder had come to know about the blue carbuncle from Catherine Cusack, the maid of the Countess of Morcar. James Ryder, now he is telling how he got that blue carbuncle and everything he is telling about that. So, from where did he hear about the blue carbuncle? From Catherine Cusack, the maid of Countess of Morcar. Do you remember, children? She was we have read in the beginning that the blue carbuncle belonged to Countess of Morcar. Ryder, who worked in that hotel, he was an employee. He had stolen the diamond and wanted to leave no track of being the thief. So he framed John Horner. In order to keep himself quite safe, he just put the whole blame on John Horner, because at that time he had seen John Horner for some repairing work, and he made a plan. He went straight away to Mrs. Oakeshot's farm. Who was Mrs. Oakeshott? Mrs. Oakeshott was a seller. She was a seller of poultry such as chickens, ducks, geese, etc. And she was also sister of James Ryder. She reared geese for the market. Ryder had an idea. He caught one goose and thrust the diamond down its throat. He just fed the diamond to the goose. Meanwhile, his sister came, and as he turned to speak to her, the goose mixed among the other geese. And here he made the mistake. Because just the goose was mixed up with other geese, he could not recognize in which goose he had thrust the diamond. His sister told him to choose a goose. Now Ryder chose the one which he thought that had the diamond. But this was not the real one. When he took the goose home and cut it in order to take the diamond out, he did not find the diamond. He hurried back to his sister's farm. But she had sold all the geese to Breckenridge. We have just read about Breckenridge. Breckenridge, he had purchased all the geese from her. And Breckenridge of Covent Garden. Now Ryder fell on his knees in front of Holmes. Ryder had confessed his guilt, his crime, and he fell on his knees, begging for mercy, and he begged pardon of Sherlock Holmes. He told him he had never ever committed any crime. He pleaded to be pardoned, and he made promise also not to repeat such crime again. Holmes listened to him and allowed Ryder to leave. And Holmes, after listening to him, he allowed. Holmes explained to Watson that he was not there to do the work of the police. That is why he gave him permission to leave. He also believed that Ryder had been very frightened and shaken up, and he had this idea. He had thought that yes, after this incident, Ryder must not repeat. He is not going to repeat such things again, and that is why He just forgave him. And in the absence of the evidence, the case against John Horner was also over and he was set free. And in this way, children, the story comes to an end. And I'm sure you must have enjoyed it. Read the story once again for a better understanding. Thank you, children.